Welcome to the second Tempo Storm meta snapshot of the Boomsday project. As the meta progresses, we continue to see more decks become refined and powerful. As we see in this tier list, more and more decks are finding their way into tier 1, and until things finally settle down, it's expected that decks will continue to move dramatically among the tier list. Malygos Druid finds itself at the top of the throne. A lot of players feel that Druid's reign is getting old, but unless more powerful cards are released or Druid is nerfed, Malfurion will likely stay on top. Malygos Druid makes use of new cards such as Phlebidinous Floop and Giggling Inventor to push the already powerful archetype. Malygos Druid is very well positioned in the meta and does very well against the majority of popular decks, and even its bad matchups aren't that bad. The best matchups for Malygos Druid include Even Warlock, as they can't outlive the burst damage from Druid, and token or minion based decks like Odd Paladin, as the threat of Spreading Plague and Swipe is huge. Malygos Druid struggles with decks like Quest Rogue or Kingsbane Rogue, where the deck can't be fatigued and Druid can't deal with the near constant late game pressure. Next up on the tier list is Odd Rogue. This deck has moved up from last week, where it held the 5th spot in tier 1. This is partly due to how strong of a card Myra's Unstable Element and Giggling Inventor have proven to be, and also just due to how the meta has lined up thus far. Odd Rogue does very well against a lot of the top tier decks, and due to this, its presence in the meta makes a lot of sense. The iteration of Odd Rogue that we're currently featuring makes use of the newly popular tech Blood Knight. This card has been added in by a lot of players due to the massive amount of Giggling Inventors seeing play. Odd Rogue preys on decks that can't deal with face damage, or also can't deal with the Rogue's improved dagger when it comes to controlling the board. For example, Kingsbane Rogue can't deal with the pressure, and Zulok can't deal with Rogue's ways of taking board while interacting with their opponents, making these decks very favored for the Rogue. The decks that can stave off the Rogue's pressure while building towards their game plan, such as Malygos Druid, do the best against Odd Rogue. Odd Paladin also does exceptionally well in this matchup, as the infinite token generation alongside their cheap cards too much for the Rogue to handle. Falling from the top of the tier list is Waggle Druid. The deck seemed to be the powerhouse deck in the previous weeks, but as the meta begins to settle, Odd Rogue and Malygos Druid have taken its spot. Don't be mistaken, Waggle Druid is still powerful. The deck will likely have worse stats at lower ranks than on higher ranks due to the complexity of the deck. The list we're currently featuring runs the additional threat of Malygos in order to make for some better matchups and to have alternate win conditions when needed. One of the Waggle Druid's best matchups is against Malygos Druid, as your game plan just lines up well against them. Not only can you out-armor their burn, but you can also just force them into fatigue with the Waggle combo, making them have virtually no win condition. Much like Malygos Druid, the worst matchups for Waggle Druid are Quest Rogue and Kingsbane Rogue, and the inevitability their decks provide is difficult for the Druid to combat. Also, Kingsbane Rogue can cheat through fatigue with the use of Kingsbane and Valir the Hollow, making our game plan null. As mentioned last week, Zulok always manages to stay relevant in the meta. Zoo preys on the new decks that people are theory crafting, as it's easy to refine and easy to pilot playstyle makes for a very easy deck to bully with. Zulok does have a lot of intricate turns, but the general playstyle of the deck is simple. The list being featured this week is the one that Amnesiac brought to Copa America. In this list, he opted to run Leroy over Doomguards due to the pure burst playstyle that current Zoo uses. Doomguards also have poor synergy with the Solarium, making them even more awkward to run. Zoo's best matchups come from combo decks that can't stave off so much consistent pressure. Decks such as Quest Rogue and Kingsbane Rogue only have Vanish to deal with Zoo's board. And due to Zoo being able to constantly rebuild boards, the Rogues tend to lose unless they draw an insanely strong hand. On the other side of the matchups, Zoo struggles to beat Even Warlock and Token Druid, as both decks can easily deal with Zoo's board while generating their own threats. Luckily for Zoo, can always find a win with a strong enough hand, or even with just drawing Prince Keliseth. Death Rattle Hunter makes a return into tier 1 due to the pure versatility of the deck. With the addition of Spider Bomb to the deck, the Hunter is given another Death Rattle to make use of, as well as a powerful removal tool. In combination with Play Dead and Terror Scale Stalker, this card can make quick work of most boards. Like a lot of the tier 1 decks, Death Rattle Hunter struggles against Quest Rogue, but can beat it with a powerful opener involving Devilsaur Egg. Death Rattle Hunter's best matchups come from decks that can't deal with the sticky minions. Decks like Control Warlock or Malygos Druid can usually remove a few minions, but lack the tools to deal with the large amount that will come out with falling cubes. In a change from last week, we're featuring Spell Hunter over Secret Hunter. Both decks have a very similar win rate, but are too similar archetypes to justify having two separate decks for them. Spell Hunter features the secret package, but opposed to running Subject 9 and other minions, it runs Rock Dalar into my side. Spell Hunter is a lot more aggressive than Death Rattle Hunter and aims to take the board using Emerald Spellstone early on in the game, and if it falls behind, has Deathstalker Rexar to come back. The best matchups for Spell Hunter are decks that can't effectively deal with Emerald Spellstone and the pressure from our hero power, such as Odd Rogue or Aggro Mage. The decks that it struggles against are decks that can easily remove Emerald Spellstone and have enough healing to outlast your hero power, much like Control Warlock can do. To everyone's dismay, Quest Rogue finds itself at the top of a meta once again. Some players are already calling for nerfs to the quest, and it's possible that the deck might be shut down again. The combination of the Rogue quest with Giggling Inventor feels extremely oppressive, and takes away a lot of decks' chances of winning. As mentioned a few times throughout the video, the Quest Rogue does very well against any slower deck, as it pretty much can apply enough pressure that they won't have time to piece together their game plan. Decks that can put Quest Rogue down are ones that are too fast for it to be allowed to piece together its own combo. Decks like Zoo and Aggro Mage are by far the worst matchups for Quest Rogue. Finally, the last deck in Tier 1 is Even Warlock. Falling down pretty far from its spot in the previous snapshot, Even Warlock finds itself at the very end of Tier 1. The deck is still very powerful, but with Malygos Druid and Quest Rogue seeing more play, Even Warlock naturally took a hit. Even Lock wants to avoid queuing into hyper-aggressive decks such as Odd Rogue and Aggro Mage, as the pressure they apply, followed up by their massive amount of burn, is too much for them to deal with. The Warlock hero power, while powerful, can also be very hurtful in these matchups. Even Lock's best matchups come from decks that can't deal with consistent board clears and threats. Token Druid is the one deck that has a very bad win rate against Even Warlock, almost simply due to Defile and Hellfire. That about wraps up the Tempo Storm meta snapshot for this week. As we can see, the tier list has a lot of decks in it, and Tier 1 is extremely populated currently, making for a very diverse metagame. Druid still feels oppressive to a lot of players, but only time will tell if this will change or not. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our other Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.